In this episode of the Arkatech Beatz Music Business Podcast, 50 years of hip-hop. Hip-hop turns 50 years old. We want to talk about what we've learned through the journey of hip-hop turning 50. Let's talk about it.
Arkatech Beatz.
What's up, everybody? It's the Arkatech Beatz Music Business Podcast. We are your hosts, platinum producers, Arkatech Beatz. I am Juggernaut.
I am Mike Trauma D.
And together, collectively, we make the super duper producer group, Arkatech Beatz. If it's your first time here, hit that subscribe button. Make sure you're hitting the notification bells. Every week, we get together to talk about different topics in the music business, things that can help you with your journey in this music business if you're an independent artist, producer, or songwriter. Today, we wanted to jump on something a little bit different, which would be hip-hop turning 50. Big deal, right? The genre is pretty young, turning 50 years old this year. And we wanted to kind of talk about what we've learned throughout the term of it turning 50 and just some of the different things that we went through and some of the things that we've learned from the culture in itself, all right? So let's jump into it.
Man, Jug, there's so much stories and so much lessons that we've learned since our inception. You know what I'm saying? Like since we first started, we've been through a lot of trials and tribulations and kind of going through the motions. And the one thing that stands out the most, is we didn't have the resources that we have now. There's so much information now, and back then, like, we didn't have that information. You would have to hope somebody will put you on or give you some sort of information to help you. But now, you can just go online and just get a whole lot of information. There's a lot of videos, a lot of things on social media that you could kind of just sort through and get the information you need. So, throughout this journey, throughout the years, technology has advanced and it has given us so many things and so much tools that we can use to really help you elevate, level up in this game. So that's one thing or two things that's we've noticed and learned throughout the years.
It's funny when we talk about that, being able to level up, being able to kind of navigate through this music easier now than we were when we were coming in. I can speak for myself that it really was able to change the course of my life. Like getting into it, embracing some of the earlier technology, just trying to learn how to sequence and make beats and how to put together your first studio, and all of those things kept me out of the street. So for hip hop, it was an outlet for me, in the Bronx, and trying to make sure that, we were staying out of trouble and we had some sort of direction, or it was a pathway to have to do something that would have, turned successful over time. So when I look at it turning 50 and I look at all of the artists that I grew up with, you figure I was introduced to this thing so young, without giving away my age. My first record that I probably ever heard was The Message. So everybody knows what that is, back with back in the days with that. And, my older brother was playing that, and it was just like, what is that? And it was like, from that point on, it was just like, I just wanted to hear more. And we just started to dive into that and the Run DMCs, and, I just started to progress. So it's like watching this whole thing progress the way that it did. Some of the things that I've actually learned too is that, we have something that we could call our own, and then also something that we can learn from in terms of business, entrepreneurism.
Right.
It was really that phenomenon that was like, okay, it was something that we were able to take on for ourselves and be able to say, okay, let's go do something with this, and let's raise our families with it. Let's start to produce revenue and so forth and so on, and create businesses from it. So it created so many different lanes for people. Right. I don't know if people are really realizing like how important this genre of music is to just the ecosystem, especially for American Black culture.
Right. Absolutely. If you think about the jobs that is created, it's if you really go down, the line of, let's think about the magazines, the companies that were built on hip hop, whether it's the Source magazine, Beatz, Double XL. There was so many Vibe. There was so many profitable companies that built their thing on hip hop, whether it's their departments or their entire business. Having a staff of hundreds specifically, to put out coverage of hip hop, alone, radio stations that have to employ, hundreds of people, because of hip hop. And you could go down the line, hundreds and hundreds to thousands and thousands of people were being employed, having a job because of hip hop. That alone is just like, it's amazing if we think about it like that.
And people don't really give it enough credit for creating trends and blowing up brands. If we're talking about fashion brands, if we're talking about Timberlands, if we're talking about just, sneakers, like this music is responsible for really pushing the needle on a lot of brands and a lot of commerce. A lot of things would never have seen the light of day without the support or the underlying music that hip hop applied to those brands and made those brands even slightly relevant.
But Jug, I think people outside of the culture appreciated it a lot quicker and took advantage of it a lot quicker than the people creating it, the people in it. These major companies saw what was happening and used it to promote their brands, to promote everything at their company, while we as a culture was happy with just doing it out of the love and the fun and a small check, but these companies started making millions of dollars off the culture, and it grew into something where hip hop became the number one music, the number one influence, the number one everything. Like, you could go across the world, and people may not even know how to speak the language, or you may not be able to relate in any other way, but when a hip hop record comes on, people overseas are quoting Biggie, Pac, quoting some of the biggest, hip hop records, but, they may not even be able to relate with you on any other level, it just goes to show, man, this hip hop really has unified the world.
and that's a dope situation, as you're saying. And something that you said a little earlier that I wanted to kind of touch on is you said that those folks outside of the culture were able to monetize and catch on to what we were doing before we were kind of privy to doing so. A quick story is like, my wife used to work for this cell phone accessory company, maybe about 10 years ago, give or take. And at first, when she started to work for that company, I didn't understand the market for cell phone accessories. And it goes back to hip hop music. When you think about hip hop music and how people were able to monetize or accessorize the things that hip hop was producing. So for a cell phone company, like Apple, you didn't know that there was an entire underbelly of aftermarket products that basically they were able to sell, and they created an entire industry selling accessories, whether it be headphones, whether it be cases, that type of stuff. So a lot of the other demographics were very quick and keen in seeing that, wait a second, there's a licensing opportunity here. There's tour opportunities here. There's this management opportunities here. There's these kind of opportunities here. And they were able to capitalize off of that. So I think a lot of us just weren't paying attention, and not realizing that it was creating an entire industry within an industry that we weren't really paying attention to. So it's like, for us turning 50 now, hip hop turning 50, what I would challenge anyone to look at is look at the current state of hip hop, look at what the music is producing, and see how you can almost accessorize, or what's going to be the underlying businesses that can be connected to support it to go for another 50 years. And those can be the other industries that make a lot of people rich, moving forward.
Right. I mean, as far as, us not knowing, I really think that we didn't have the information.
We never do.
We didn't have the information or the infrastructure to even build on that information, and now with technology, we have the information. So now it's all about, are you going to use the information, build on it, or what? 50 years of hip hop, man, that's when I think about how music has changed. Not, the music business is one aspect of change, but I think about creatively how music has changed, and there's always a debate about that, whether music has got better, has it been more creative, have we really reached our full potential, has it fallen off, is it being influenced on a negative level? I think about all of those things, and one thing I do wish, and Nas said it recently, is that I do wish that the artists that we grew up listening to will continue to make records, continue to make records, or even, create new artists that are making records, maybe not updated version of the style of music that we all grew up to. I believe this generation of music, it is dope, but I do feel that it is catered to a certain audience. And a lot of people, I would say a lot of the early hip hop heads don't have anything to listen to. You pass the 30 years, 35, 40, you want to listen to something a little bit more concrete, some more substance, especially if you're a mature individual. You're looking for something a little bit more concrete, a little more substance, a little more jewels, a little more life lessons, something that you could take with you, you could carry with you, you could apply, and a lot of people are looking for that, and we don't necessarily have it. So I think that's a lot of, I think you get a lot of complaints because of that. And we're accusing young artists of not delivering this, but it's not always, it's not on them all the time,
Shout out to Nas, cover of Billboard this month for 50 years of hip hop. He is the true representation of hip hop.
Yeah.
50 years in, 30-year career, still highly relevant, still putting out music at a high clip.
Yeah.
And, to your point, what you were saying with him saying, hey, he wants to hear people put out their art. Yeah. I also agree with him in saying that. It's like, there's no need for you to follow any trends. And like you also said, there's really nothing left for them to prove. I think you and I talked about this offline. There's nothing else for them to really prove. But I think we've gotten into the point where we're always compared to our last work. So if Lil Wayne don't sell what he sold before, he's no longer Lil Wayne, which is just crazy to us. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't take away what he's done. He's already done it. He's already done the big numbers. So it's like, he shouldn't be under pressure for his next release to perform the way the other one performed. Now, to a certain degree, that might be because of the simple fact of the way the business is set up. Meaning, as a label, they're looking for the ROI. I don't think everyone has the liberty to produce what Nas is doing, because I don't think Nas is under any really isn't he free of his contract at this point?
I don't think so. He may still be.
Because all of that stuff is coming under Mass Appeal, isn't it?
I'm unsure where his deal is currently. I don't know if it's Mass Appeal. I don't know if he still has a Sony. I don't know if he still has a Def Jam deal. He might be on one of those three, or Mass Appeal and Def Jam. I'm unsure.
Because what it appears to me is like he's found a way to create these new projects in a cost-effective manner.
Right.
I think that by having one singular producer, I think that he's been able to kind of control the cost,
right,
to where it makes sense to produce music at this high clip. Because in most cases, most labels would say, we're not getting any number ones. We can't keep putting out music like this because it's not, there's no ROI. But I think that artists should really start to put out more music, regardless of where they are, regardless of if it's trendy or not. It's like you just want to hear what folks have to offer or how they see hip hop in their current, landscape. I'm very interested to see what LL Cool J is going to drop.
Right. Yeah. I think we need more of that. I think on a creative aspect, it would be dope if, Nas or LL, 50, Fat Joe, all of these guys, just, find one producer for a project and keep your costs down, find one producer, do a EP to an album. And then the next project, you can always find another producer, change the sound a bit and go from there. It doesn't have to be this one album where you're paying a bunch of different producers and the budget is all over the place. You can just work out something with one producer and say, okay, let's do 6 to 8 records or 8 to 10 records at this cost, and let's just get that out on a business level. And at the same time, you're able to, find a sound that's gonna be cohesive. It's gonna be an album. Because I think during the last 50 years of hip hop, I think because of technology, we have lost the album. It's been such a singles driven thing lately, where it's okay, it's just a one record. It's a playlist kind of environment versus an album. Artists concentrating on creating a body of work versus one song that could fit on the playlist or one song that could match another playlist. That's one thing that I do miss, and what I've seen over the years. We've gotten away from the album, the dope skits, the different things that make an album what it is.
Got to get back to it. It's like, folks have to realize that. I think we talked about it last episode where, the standards are different.
Mm-hmm.
The standards are different. So, the rules that we used to have in place, they really don't apply, especially for your legacy artists. For your legacy artists, it's like, you guys are not under any real constraints. Mm-hmm. Just produce something and put it out. It connects yourself to something or someone that can produce the art that as you hear it, and then start to put it out and let the fans decide what's what. Also, I don't know if the legacy artists understand the current business model of today. There's no shelf life, right? There's no longer, you're no longer competing to be on the shelves of record stores. So it's not like your music can only be in the store for the next 3 to 6 months and has to be removed for a new product coming in. That's not the situation here. It's that if people rock with your catalog, which I think Nas is exploiting, if people rock with your catalog and you continue to add to that catalog, what do you think happens?
Yeah,
Like I think that he's found the model. He understands that, hey, I'm a catalog artist, I'm a legacy artist, and for every project that I drop, it may not have that immediate impact, but my fans eventually are going to get to this music.
yeah.
And when they get to it, they're gonna love it. That's it. So that's the great thing about streaming, is that you don't have to discover it now.
Right. And it sticks around.
It sticks around.
Yeah.
And any record can catch fire this week, next year, next month, 3 years from now. You know, it just becomes a meme somewhere, or something happens and somebody can rediscover, and people are rediscovering old music all day, every day online. So, and it becomes trendy or whatever that may or may not be. So I think they may be doing themselves a disservice when we think about that.
Yeah, but I also have to wonder, you know, it's been a long run. You know, it's been a long run. If you think about, you know, some of those artists that we grew up watching, you know, they've been on tours, they've done so much, you know, and, you know, I got to think about, you know, okay, maybe they spent the majority of their career on the road or just out and about everywhere, getting to the bag. And, you know, maybe some of them are at a point in their life where they're just trying to sit back and really just enjoy, you know, what they have, or, you know, spend the time with their families now and this and that, because, you know, you don't really see them running around doing the things that they were doing, you know. They're not putting out the projects. They're not being on tour. They're not, you know, doing some of these things, you know. 50, you said this is 50 Cent's last tour?
That's what he says, but I don't think it is. I think once he sees how much money he's going to generate, I don't think that, you know, like, he has to realize that he's an icon at this point. At this point, what he's done is nothing less than phenomenal. And people have to really give him his respect, because compared to a lot of his peers, he did it in half the time.
Right.
You know, so, you know, when you think about what he's doing, he's going to come off tour, and I know he's going to immediately go into album mode. Immediately go into album mode. Because if we're smart, and this is just me talking, if we're smart, and if we're 50 years of hip hop in, and if we're utilizing technology from what we've learned, which is he's going on a world tour, he's going to have all of this customer data.
Mm-hmm.
As he should. He should have all of this customer data. Everybody that came and bought those tickets, we're going to have this number now. This number of people who we know are engaged because they came out to come see you. There's no reason why you shouldn't be putting out new music.
Well, you know, man, 50 years of hip hop, early on, we wouldn't get that information.
Exactly. That's exactly my point. My point is that early on in our careers, we would have never have access to that information. Now, because it's have digital ticket sales, so forth, merch, this, that, and third, he has that customer information. So you can't tell me that he can't pre-sell an album. You can't tell me that he can't pre-sell an album, or he can't bundle an album and pre-sell it. You can't tell me that.
Right.
You can't tell me that. So I know that there's an album coming for that man. So, you know, I even see Cameron and these guys now starting to put out some music, right? Because their podcast's picking up.
Mm-hmm.
They're putting out the music again. Music is sounding decent like it normally does. He's having fun with it. It's like, just put out the art. Like, to me, it's not, I don't see the point in trying to, you know, compete with the old machine, which is, you know, oh, it has to come out on this weekend and it has to do this number.
Right.
None of that stuff is really relevant anymore.
It feels like there needs to be, and I'm just thinking now, does there need to be another division of hip hop? Meaning, not like an old school at noon kind of thing, but does there need to be
an old school at news type of thing? Even though you don't need it, but you need it.
But you know, those kind of artists, does there need to be a category for that? You know,
No, because no other genre has that, except for maybe rock, like classic rock.
classic rock.
Let's say classic rock, right?
But country has it too, I believe, right? Country.
Not to my knowledge, but I can't say I'm versed in that to know. But I think, in all honesty, it's like we're the only ones that like to segment our artists between old school and new school.
But I say that so that there is no competition between the new artists and the old artists, because there shouldn't be a competition.
Oh, it should be a competition.
You
Because
think so?
because the older artists are going to start kicking their ass, and because the older artists know how to write those songs. The older artists know how to write the songs better. Real talk.
But
So they're gonna start kicking the young people behind a little bit, and the young people will step their pen games up. I think that healthy competition is always great to help to purge.
I guess what I'm saying is, do we need to have 14-year-olds competing with 40-year-olds?
To a degree.
Where would we normally have that? We don't have NBA players in competition with junior varsity.
No, but I'm saying, like, from a musicality standpoint, music is gonna be music. We've always embraced when a young person come out with some dope music. Like, we've always embraced that. That's never been a situation where a young person can't come out with something that was dope, as long as the content fit, the age bracket. Like, we're talking about even a young Michael Jackson that, they've always embraced the younger generation of making good music. So the situation is just that the music that the younger generation is doing now, it's not being challenged. I think it needs to be. I think it needs to have a little bit of healthy competition for people to raise the standard. I think because we don't have that, people need to be able to compare and contrast. Like, if we just getting one set of things, so we can't say, okay, is this better? So when Nas drops some magic, and he drops the magic, and then everybody's going crazy about the magic. So now the younger artists got to say, damn, how do I get back some of this attention? Like, how is he still getting attention at this age? Right? So they have to figure it out. They have to figure out how they're going to be able to compete with that. And maybe they may need to just write a little bit better. Like, that's the reality of the situation. And I think that needs to happen more often in this business. It's like, yeah, let's get some of the legacy artists to come back out. And I would love to hear Kane on something new, right?
Yeah.
I will, because obviously he still can spit at a very high clip, right? I would love to hear CL Smooth.
Yeah.
People are gonna say to me like I'm crazy for that, but I would love to hear CL Smooth. Like, I understand that Pete Rock was your bedrock in terms of your production. There's just too many options for you not to. Too many production options for you not to do any music.
Right.
It just doesn't make sense to me. So shout out to CL Smooth. He's one of my favorites. So don't take that as any kind of slight. It would be an honor. So if anybody can shoot that over, let him know. But there are a lot of artists that are like that I think that can come out and can who had hit records, who had good careers, who could still come out now and just rap to their demographic. They don't have to do anything that's outside of who they are. Let's put it that way.
Now we get 50 years of hip hop. So Medi Mel has been back and forth with Eminem, and Eminem has, I guess, recently dissed Medi Mel on a record, and I haven't got a chance to hear the record.
Is that real? You said that? Is that real?
Can we while we look it up? I'm seeing it all over my timeline, and they said Eminem. Can we check the validity of that?
Well, I don't think M would do that.
But Mel has been dissing him for years.
Dang, I do see this. This is I'm late to this party.
Yeah. So
it says he sends a message to Melly Mel. Mm-hmm. Okay. I mean, I'll have to listen to this offline.
Mm-hmm.
He said he dissed the game too.
I believe so.
Sheesh. He should never have. Should leave the game alone. Personally, but that's just me. I don't think you should give him a platform, but that's just me. But anyway, because he's going to respond. It's a troll. He's going to respond to it, and even if it's a trash response, he's going to respond. But you keep giving y'all keep giving him more life.
Yeah, and 50 years of hip hop. I mean,
It's about competition, right? It's always been about that, right?
Yeah, but I have to say, and this is something that's always been out there. The old school rappers, the older rappers, the founders, that whole era, would you think they are bitter, towards the generations that are after them, the generations that have been reaping a lot of the rewards of, some of the things they put down? Would you say they are bitter or genuinely proud of what some of the artists after them have done and completed?
Yes. We see that with the MC Shan and Nas controversy. We see that. We see it. I cannot be angry at anyone who comes after us and who's found a new way to exploit what it is that we do. And I think that is the problem. The problem is that this person has been able to look at what you did, say, okay, I see what you did, okay, and I see what you can do better. Make a better business model, make more money in a shorter time span. And a lot of us are like, oh my gosh, like you couldn't have got that without me. So some of them are feeling like, hey, you couldn't have gotten to that point if you didn't, dissect the mistakes that I made. And maybe you should shoot something back to me for taking the lump for you or taking the punch. So now you know how to, weave and counterpunch. It's not fair, man. It's like, it's not fair. We have the benefit of information that they didn't have. But that's just what it is, right? We have the benefit of information that they don't have. The difference that the older artists are not really paying attention to, and we've been talking about it the entire episode, is that you guys still have the option to come and you still have the option to be a part of the situation now.
Right.
You're not out of the game. You're only out of the game is if you decide not to do anything.
Right.
All right. So for those who have name recognition, folks who've been in it for X amount of years, who have the network, all you got to do is get a little team together to execute a few things and put yourself back on this map. Right. I'm sure Kane, Rakim, KRS, I'm sure that these folks are continuing to tour and they're able to eat. What was the last time Ducky Fresh put out an album? That never stopped him from being all over the place. Right? And then what no one wanted to do and what everyone was trying to stay away from, everybody was trying to stay away from being labeled as an old school artist, not really realizing that there was an entire segment in market of people who wanted to go see their legacy artists. We wanted to go see Wu-Tang and Nas. Like, look at this tour that was been very, very, very successful. People would say that no one wanted to see these artists. That's not true. We want to go see these folks. It's a successful tour. People would go see KRS and Kane. They would pay for it. People would pay to see these things. And then what happens is, as a legacy artist, you attach yourself to those machines and make sure that you have a way to eat. And then if you want to put out some new music, put out some new merch, put out some new stuff, and then you can elevate yourself slowly back into the culture. But I just think what happens is folks just get so bitter that they can't get it the way Eminem is getting it. There's no way for you to get what Eminem got. There's just no way. And if you realize this, he's a singular one in a generation time talent.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. You took a one-time generational talent and you put him with a one-time generational talent producer with a
Co-sign. Yeah.
one-time generational talent music executive and Jimmy Iovine.
Right.
How do you come on? Like you know what I'm saying? Like you put all of these things together. Like this is how business is supposed to work. You take the greatest minds and you put the greatest minds together, and then you get the greatest product. That's what they did. They put one of the greatest producers together with one of the greatest lyricists together with one of the greatest executives. Then you take another guy who's one of the greatest street marketing guys in terms of 50 Cent, you put him in the situation and look, boom, he's successful.
Right.
It doesn't work for everybody, but it works for the folks who are generationally talented. Like if it's a generational talent, it's going to work, you know, and this is what it is. Like he's genuinely talented. You can't knock it. Like, you know, so if these guys going at them, it's like, can't be bitter, man. Like I'm tired of hearing this situation. It's like it's us being bitter at a newer producer because he uses this program, and we were too busy using hardware, and he said, "Hey, I'm going to use this."
But remember, that was a thing though. That was a thing when the landscape changed, when it went from hardware to software, you know, and the older producers were very upset. You know, to be honest, you know, had no respect for the software producer. You know, they couldn't
fathom it. They couldn't understand it. You're not playing
all sorts of names, man. They called them all sorts of names, and to be honest, you know, I was stuck at a moment. You know, we remember that I was stuck for a moment. You know, I was on the NPC 2000 XL, and this whole software thing, I was just like, I wasn't really with it at first. And, you know, me and Jug had a back and forth about it for a little while. And Jug was, you know, the software, man, that, you know. And, man, it was the best pivot that I could have done, you know, in my career, man.
This is why we have the problem that we have. And this is part of the reason. This is one of the things that we should learn from hip hop. Hip hop has always been about moving something forward, being fashionable, right? Or catching a trend. Or we were the beginning of the trend before the trend became the trend.
Right.
It's the same thing with technology to a degree, right? Mm-hmm. If you think about how we were the first ones to embrace the two-way pager, or we're the ones that made that explode. You know, we're the ones that had the phones in the music videos and certain things, and then all of that technology starts to just go crazy. You know, a sidekick or whatever you want to call it. We're so fast to embrace like fashion and all of that stuff, but when it comes to like the technology portion of it or the business portion of it, we're slow to embrace that part.
Doug, we don't just embrace it. We create a lot of the fashion. To be honest with you,
that's a whole other thing. Yeah,
Nike was built on our backs.
Nobody wants to admit that.
Nike was built on our back. You know, when it comes to the color schemes and the things that we did with the regular Nikes, you know, coloring it in and doing all the designs on our sneakers, you know, just to make it match, you know, the gear that we had, because they didn't have those colors.
Yeah, sure didn't.
You know, what Ghostface and Raekwon did with the Wallabies was stands on its own.
Yeah.
You know, so we were doing things with clothes and just ideas and just things. You know, hip hop wasn't just also about telling the world about what's happening in your community. It wasn't just about this is happening, and you know, I'm living in these conditions, or the police is doing this, or my environment is just this. It was also showcasing what we were able to do, you know, with all the things that were happening to us. Yeah, I didn't have enough money to do this, but I was able to take what I have and I was able to create this. You know, we were able to just come up with ideas based on the limitations that were set on us as a community. You know, that's what made this thing so creative. You know, hip hop was based because it was the cheapest and most affordable thing to do. You didn't need anything. A paper, a pad, and a pencil. As far as your beat, you were doing your beatboxing on the lunchroom table making a beat. It was the cheapest and most affordable thing that you could do when it comes to making music. And we were creative with it, and it just grew into something huge, and over the time you had to be able to use the things that are around you to create new things, to be able to grow. If you didn't have this, it was more of okay, how can I make this do what I wanted to do? Look at drum loops, look at samples. Okay, that sample and that drums is going a certain way. I can't play an instrument, but how can I make that music into this? How could I make that 2-second loop into a 4-minute record? We always took the things, the limitations and the hindrance, the sampler, the SP1200, what was it, the 12-second sampler? Like, how are you able to create a full beat on such limitations is what made us like, okay, let's get creative. Let's figure something out. That is something that within the last 50 years as the growth that we seem to have lost, being creative. Now we have everything. We have all the resources. We have this, we have that. And coming out with music that's just quote unquote trash for the most part.
Oh, you said a lot, brother. Like you said a lot.
I think I had that built in for a while.
You said that a lot, and it's again, it's 50 years of hip hop, man, and this is what we're trying to reflect on, and we're trying to say, okay, what will happen in the next 50 years? Will we be able to embrace technology? Will we be able to pivot? Will we be able to be more, creative with the things that we have? Because there's still a lot of limitations, in my opinion, especially business-wise. I think there's a lot of limitations. I think there's a lot of growth that can take place in terms of business. I think that there's a lot of still a lot of misunderstanding and misuse of contracts. Yeah. I think people are still not versed in copyright, still not versed in publishing, not versed in these things, and still it's 50 years in and we're still talking about people not understanding the nuances of this. And I think that's another place where we can kind of get better. But with this music, man, where we are currently, and I think the way things are going, I think it'll get better. I think as more people start to really reflect like we're doing now and start looking at, where it came from and where it's taken us and where it can take us potentially more in the future, it's like people will continue to do things that are great. I'm just happy that we've been able to contribute to the culture. Yeah. I'm very happy that we've been able to, have some of our moments with some of the greater legacy artists, the people who will be etched into the culture forever, the Big Puns and the prodigies of Mobb Deep and Max B and, Jadakiss, Nas, like these people are etched into the culture and they're going to be here. So a lot of the music that we were able to help to create, will be part of that. So I think that's a dope thing too as well. And then also trying to make new things for artists and continue that legacy.
Absolutely. So that's the goal, though, to create something that's going to stand the test of times to when it's the next 50 years or the next whatever, that, folks will be able to appreciate what was done, prior. They could speak on it and say, yeah, I got where I got that from the people who put it down before me. I was able to do this. I was able to do that. I was also able to take what they've handed me and contribute to it and move it forward. If we're not moving the culture forward, then we're doing a disservice to the culture. it's our obligation to push this culture forward and to teach the next generation also. You know, I think a lot of us dropped the ball on that. You know, I think over the span of the 50 years of hip hop, you know, there have been some, I would say, fighting amongst us. You know, there've been a lot of things going on that, for the lack of a better word, I would say there's been some in-house fighting, and we need to clean up shop. You know, I think we got to take responsibility for a lot of not only the music that's come out, but also the business. You know, we didn't do enough preaching to and showing the next generation that, hey, don't do this, don't do that. Yeah, we spoke about it, but we haven't opened up no new labels per se and put people in position. You know, a lot of the labels that were around are gone. You know, the Rockefellers, the Rough Riders, you know, a lot of these dope labels, man. And, you know, we need to get back to that, you know.
I think, and I know we only have a few minutes left, but I think the reason why a lot of those things have gone away is because what we have not been able to successfully do is we have not been able to create what we would call a sustainable model of the record business.
Yeah.
Like okay, your album number one, say you got $50,000 advance. Automatically for album number two, you wanted $100,000. All right, then album number three, you wanted $250,000. All right, and then album number four, you wanted, you know, $500,000. Right, and I think what happens is that it's not a sustainable model because, you know, and I know that as a person starts to use a product or gets used to a brand, it sometimes plateaus. It doesn't keep continuing to sell what it used to sell. Right. It goes up and then it either it flats and then it sometimes declines. And I don't think that the business model, especially for some of our labels, were ever created with that in mind. You know, knowing that, okay, the funds are not sustainable in terms of we're not going to be able to pay, you know, this artist $1 million for this project. It's just not sustainable. And, you know, and we weren't going to make that money back. And a lot of artists were carrying a whole bunch of debt, you know, because of that. You know, artists still not recouping 10, 15, 20 years later because of all of the debt that they incurred. You know, it's not a sustainable model. And then after a time, people will start looking at those models and say, okay, well, there's no way for those labels to become lucrative anymore. Yeah. So I think when we talk about that, you know, we have to start looking at, okay, there has to be a sustainable model in terms of what it takes to create music. Mm-hmm. And then we have to find those other ancillary industries to support it to get the other money that the artist might feel that they're entitled to. So you may not be able to get all that money in a recording budget, but you might be able to get it through an endorsement deal. Right. You might be able to get it through over here. And if you think about how NBA situation is, that's how NBA, you know, business work, where the NBA salary is one thing, and then they say, hey, you'll be able to make up the money off of this and this and this. And if you're in this market, you'll be able to do this, you'll be able to do that. So everything doesn't come down to it. It's an NBA salary, because if everybody's salary kept going up and up, and you don't have the NBA revenue, it's not a sustainable model. It's just no way it can't support itself. So it's the same thing. Like, I think the budgets were just going crazy. $1 million for a video.
Yeah. If you had to leave one point or one thing you have learned in this entire 50 years of hip hop, to leave with something, whether it's something positive, negative, whatever it is, like what is a key thing, a key moment, a lesson, maybe, whatever, that you've learned
the one thing that I know it's going to sound a little cliche or maybe a little whatever, but the one thing that I learned from hip hop, man, is that we're a dominant force in society more than anybody wants to give us credit for. Like I realized that hip hop was really, that our voices were really powerful. Our influence was really powerful. We were able to move markets. We were able to shift culture. If you're a black person growing up in America, we're of course we're from Caribbean descent, but you can kind of get that feeling that you're kind of a less in society, and that sort of thing. And I think what hip hop was able to do was kind of be like, no, you guys are important, and what you guys do, in society and the world as a whole was important in shifting culture, and was really a way to help to quell some of the divide that we had, because it was bringing so many people together.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well said.
That's my takeaway. So I don't know what yours is, but that's my takeaway for 50 years.
50 years, man. There's been so many changes. I mean, I have so many things, but I think maybe a bunch of small things. Adapting to technology, adapting to change, being able to do that is crucial. But I think also one of the biggest things that I've realized in hip hop and the music business is the smoke and mirrors. I think this is a big lesson for me. Not getting caught up with the glitz, the glamour, the fame, the jewelry, the cars, the women, the drugs, those things are all distractions. I think focusing on what really matters, is going to not only get you to where you need to get to, but it's going to be able to sustain you. When you're basing your craft, or you're basing why you're in this business based on solely money, or getting caught up in all the other things that don't matter, that's when you're going to fall. But when you're doing this with I want to make sure my family is good, I want to leave a legacy, I'm into culture, all of those things that mean something, I think those are people that stick around. That's what matters.
That my cousin, my brother. It's well said. This is Arkatech Beatz Music Business Podcast, folks. Make sure that you're following us at www.arkatechbeats.com.
Chime in, people.
Chime in the comments. 50 years of hip hop.
What you think?
What you thinking? Also, these episodes are brought to you by our beautiful situation in terms of our books. But we want to make sure that everybody is still making sure that they're trying to get those. If you don't already have the Songwriter's Guide to Song Registration, please make sure you go pick that up. If you also don't have the Musician's Guide to Music Copyrights, make sure you pick that up. And also the Musician's Guide to Music Publishing. And finally, the Ultimate Guide to Forming Your Own Music LLC. Those are available now. Thank you for your support. Keeps us doing what we're doing. Any parting words as we have a few more minutes on this?
The only thing that I could think of, man, is let's keep this going, man. Let's
get some more years in, man.
Work some more years in, man. And I would like for our kids to be able to, hey, hip hop's been here for 100 years, and
that's crazy, man.
That would be freaking dope, man. I think, and create more new ways, new kinds of music that we can't even think of at the moment. Just like that will be such a beautiful thing, that what we're doing now can create something even more incredible down the road that we can't even think of, you know. So to hip hop 50 years, man, salute.
Salute.
Shout out to everyone involved, everyone, the fans, the consumers, people participating in any form or fashion. You know, we salute all of you guys. We thank all of you, and just continue pushing forward, man. Continue pushing this culture forward.
Let's get it, man. So until next time, folks.
Peace.
Peace. Be safe out there.